Let's make this conversation even more interesting and bring in the bling bling. That is Blaine Fowler, BYUtv dual threat analyst. Blaine, great to have you on the show. How do you feel about bling bling Blaine Fowler?
That's okay. Like, hey, you can't make up your own nickname, but if you got my favorite is Uncle B, but it is a little bit weird. Like, all you guys call me Uncle B. B Logan, B-Lo started that, and I was in Costco. And probably an 85-year-old guy came up to me. He's like, Uncle B! And he gave me a hug. I'm like, wow, that's a little weird. I'm the uncle of an 85-year-old guy.
That's funny.
But I'll go with it. I'll go with that one. So Uncle B's my favorite, but I'll go with Bling Bling.
Okay, a minute ago, we were talking about the Jimbo Fisher quote about glorified junior colleges. For certain there's only a handful of teams that get some of the best players now and compete for the national title. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's overstated. It's a little dramatic. There's still, I've had interesting conversations with guys like Tyler Batty and Micah Harper in these last couple of weeks. There's still a core of folks that come out, and BYU is always going to be a school that has to maybe find some diamonds in the rough. But think about it. Both those guys maybe are diamonds in the rough, but they're committed guys. They both said to me, yeah, I could go get some more money someplace else, but I committed to these coaches and they committed to me and they're developing me and I'm getting networked, and the NIL stuff's not the most important thing to me. I want to stay here. And I think you can have success with a core of those kinds of guys. And that's how BYU is going to have success. The problem for the Florida States and the Miamis that are paying $1 million for a high school quarterback, right, is that as soon as that guy comes in and he doesn't start as an 18-year-old freshman, he's on to the next bidder. And it's very disruptive. So I think it's a little dramatic. I think it's a little overstated. I think there's a little more depth to college football than maybe he thinks. Now, can BYU compete with Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, those schools that always are in that top 5 in the country? Well, nobody compete with them. They haven't been able to for years. So that's not changing. But that next level, I don't think this has as big an impact as he thinks it does.
Blaine Fowler is on BYU Sports Nation, bringing the bling bling with his commentary. All right, we looked at the schedule earlier in the show, and we asked the following question. Do you believe that BYU's schedule in 2024 is going to be tougher than the football slate they face in 2023? Jeremy and I think that it actually is going to be a tad tougher. Blaine, how do you feel about it?
I don't like the preseason schedule. I can tell you that. You go on the road at SMU, who's a very good football team with a bunch of folks coming back. That's not a gimme, right? And then playing in Wyoming is never a picnic. I've done it before. It's not easy, and they're physical and they're really good at home. And so I think the preseason schedule is a challenge. Do I think they can come out of that 3-0? I still think they can come out of it 3-0. Maybe worst case scenario 2-1. They lose to SMU. I do, however, in my opinion, they have some of the toughest games on their schedule at home. Like when you think about Kansas State is at home. I think Kansas State's going to compete for the title. Arizona, I think, is really good with who they have coming back. That game's at home. Oklahoma State, who, in my opinion, is the favorite going into the league with everything they have coming back, and including the quarterback and Gordon, that game's at home. Kansas, who gave BYU some problems last year and has a bunch of guys coming back, that game's at home. To me, the toughest road game this year is the game up at Utah, which is a familiar place and a rivalry game, which always levels that a little bit. So I would say the regular conference season, because of who they play at home and because of who they play on the road, is a wash from last year to me. Now, because I think the preseason schedule is a little tougher, I'm going to say it's slightly tougher than last year. But I'm going to say that with this caveat. I think BYU is a much more veteran team this year, and they're going to be deeper than they were. And if they can stay healthy, they're in a better position to win more games, even though the schedule's slightly tougher.
Agreed. I do want to follow up on something you said. Do you feel like Oklahoma State will be the preseason pick to win the league by the coaches, or will it be Utah?
It's interesting. I think Oklahoma State has more coming back, because I think if you knew that you had 100% healthy Cam Rising and your running back situation was solid at Utah, you always know they're going to be good defensively. But I don't know that anybody can say how good Cam Rising is going to be. There's no question what Oklahoma State has coming back. And so if I'm voting, I would say Oklahoma State. Utah's new coming to the league, and when the coaches vote, I think that may sway people to go with Oklahoma State. We'll see. I would think Oklahoma State's going to edge out Utah as the preseason favorite.
Blaine Fowler on BYU Sports Nation. Let's follow up with another football question, because based on preseason projections coming from multiple sources and our friends in the desert, Blaine, they have the Cougars slated to win 4.5 games. I mean, really low. BYU ended up on the bottom tier of a recent social media post in the bad category from College Football Report. It's just weird to see BYU where they are. So why do you believe, aside from what you just said, that BYU has some veterans, the Cougars can overachieve and they can blow that 4.5 win projection out of the water?
I was thinking they were going to be better than last year just based on kind of who's coming back. But what really solidified that for me was a conversation I had with Darius Lassiter a couple of weeks ago. And he explained to me what his mindset was and what his knowledge of the offense was. When he started talking about, well, I was brand new to this offense. And so, you know, I'd be out there and if, let's say toward the end of the season, Jake's in the game and he makes a check, I think to myself, crap, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do on this play. And then I look next to me and, you know, depending on who's there, they don't know either, right? And then in that same evening, I also had a conversation with LJ Martin. And he said, oh, yeah, like if the quarterback made a check, he would look back to me and tell me which way to go. Like I wasn't sure where I was going. And you guys already documented earlier in the show the talent at wide receiver. Some of that talent was nullified by inexperience this last year. I think the receiving core makes a giant step forward. I think you add some new faces, you know, like even at tight end with Ryder Swanson. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to have a big impact. I think they're deep at tight end. I think they're really deep at wide receiver. And Darius told me, I'm to the point now, after spring ball, I not only know what I'm supposed to do on every play, I know what everybody else on the field is supposed to do at the receiver position on every play. So they're going to make a step forward offensively. The key to me is, do they get consistent play out of the quarterback, and does the quarterback protect the football and not turn it over? Because I think the defense will be significantly better. They've added depth. They've added some stars to the defense. I mean, you mark my words, a couple of names. Jack Kelly is going to be a star on this defense. Like he was impressive, popped off the field to me every time I went to a practice or scrimmage during spring ball. Bonafide star. And let's not forget that BYU lost both starting safeties before they even played a game last year, in Talon Alfrey and Micah Harper. They're both back. And then another new guy that's going to play as a freshman is Tommy Prasis at safety. Really, really skilled. And they built depth at those positions where they had injuries at linebacker. And you know, we saw Sarah as a freshman playing. They're so much deeper at defense. If they can just stay remotely healthy, they're going to be better than they were last year, because they'll be significantly better defensively. And the offense is going to actually know what's going on.
Last 5 games, BYU gave up nearly 38 points. As a team, there were some touchdowns that were given up in other ways, right, from the offense or whatnot, but certainly need to shore that up. Let's talk about Noah Waterman. How big of a loss is that, in your opinion?
It hurts, because I think Noah had a role. My take in talking to guys like Dallin Hall and had a long conversation with Trevin Nell, and he kind of told me about the conversations that other guys have had. I think Kevin Young is like brutally honest with these guys. And so I think, which I love, and a lot of players love, where he sits down with them, he says, listen, this is your skill set. This is where you fit into what we want to do. Here's the things I think you need to do better if you want to get more playing time or have more of an impact. But here's how I think we can help you do those things. So this is what I'm seeing. And anything he says negative, he's like, I hope you prove me wrong, and then we're going to do everything we can to make you better in that. But he's brutally honest with these guys. So a guy like Noah, I'm sure he sat down with Noah, and I know some of these guys are looking for more NIL money, and I think Kevin Young and our NIL folks, they're looking at people and going, some people we might need to pay more, other people we're not paying anymore, and so I think Noah, you get in a situation with Noah where, like, I want a little more money, I want my role a little more defined. And my guess is he just didn't hear exactly what he wanted to hear, but what he was hearing from Coach was the truth. And so that's okay. If Noah feels like he's going to get a better opportunity at Louisville and maybe get a little more money, that's okay. Will BYU miss him? Yeah, I think he played an important role this last year, but I don't think the cupboard's, not. I wish there were more in the cupboard right now, but I think what they have coming back is quality, and I think some of the new pieces, Keita is a huge piece to what they're going to do. The guys they got back were important to get back, and man, and you guys know we can't talk about it on this show in specifics, but some of the kids they've had on campus in the last couple of weekends, including this past weekend, are the highest rated recruits BYU's ever had on campus. So the future is fine with or without Noah. It's a disappointment because I think he had a role, but I think they'll be fine without him.
Blaine, great stuff. Always good to catch up with you. We'll do it again soon, brother. Be well.